which is one of the systemic and important issues from the standpoint of approach towards the role of the government in Ukraine. Please welcome Ihor Bilous, Chair of the State Property Fund of Ukraine, with his presentation of the first 100-day results. I think we'll have about an hour to see what happens. The first slide is rather of general nature. I'd like to remind you about the key functions of the State Property Fund. 4 of them: privatization, corporate government, rental services, and regulation of appraisal activities. As of today, I'd like to present you a brief stock taking of what we are doing and where we are going. The central body comprises 535 employees, with regional bodies included, and we plan reorganization of scale that we plan to finish by the end of this month. It will provide for material optimization of our operations. We are speaking about our performance for the first 100 days, but I'd like also to tell you about how we will enter this autumn. The information may be of statistical interest for those in the matter. We are going to optimize our departments, and we've already optimized our body network. We reduced almost by half the number of mandatory reforms at the regional level, and you can only imagine how it will really facilitate our daily operations. The optimization will also concern optimization of our personnel, also at the regional level, because at times we have really small branches with no real functions behind them. It will be only logical to optimize them. Regional branches in the Crimea and Sevastopol were also optimized and transferred to Kherson. And this is really of importance, because throughout our cooperation with the Ministry of Justice, we've come across hundreds of cases of our economic properties and objects being located on the Crimean territory, and there have been certain legal clashes between Ukraine and Russia on that, and lots of debates about the matter we have until this moment. And we will also tap on the outflow information from the State Property Fund, and in view of that, we are going to introduce an innovative electronic document turnover system, given leaks of information from the old system and given lengthy documentation procedures we still have in place and we still have to fight with. We've updated our team by introducing new persons from business communities. Some of them already work on the position of counselors. Some have been working almost on a volunteer basis, given the small salaries they get. And given our optimization of personnel strength, I think we will be able to somehow improve their wages. Our initiatives and the results. First, the stock taking. Owing to this, we found 402 objects within the fund, with 37 state enterprises and 76 companies with state shares. And you can see the number of them going into bankruptcy. We've created a rather important department to fight insolvency matters and bankruptcy status of enterprises. The sheer scale of its operations is really awesome, because many times we see people standing behind those bankruptcy cases. Sometimes we see high-ranking guys from the parliament supporting this, and we do hope that we'll eventually come to a common denominator to improve the situation and rectify it. Maybe we will launch some correctly and strongly procedured sanation measures for the benefit of the state. We plan to closely monitor financial performance results. This is a new feature for us, and this will be the task of our corporate management and administration department. We've just started this new line of activity, the one that we should have had for 20 years before. For the want and for the lack of it, we have this ugly phenomena of big enterprises going bankrupt. I'm going to present these changes, legislative changes included, to the National Council of Reform in a view to improve the situation with bankruptcy level. And hopefully you will hear about that quite soon. Corporate governance. I think you have these slides in your handouts. Have you distributed? No, if no, well, you will have to check these statistics on screen. Unfortunately, not everything happens the way we want it. Still, we've managed to get some enterprises onto our aegis. Khersonska and Odetska thermal power plants, some shares from the Zaporizhzhia aluminum plant. It was done owing to general meeting we arranged there. And we plan to go further with the privatization to see which type of production can be continued at this plant. Having returned 60% share in the company, will have to put it on sale next year. We had 29 sessions of supervisory boards, and our representatives took part in a number of shareholder meetings. We try to gradually change the supervisory boards, introducing new members who we trust, and this is quite a lengthy and painful process at times. There are some discussions between us and those who represent assets of the other partners, and we would really like this to go faster. As regards competitive selections of managers, we managed to change the heads at the Zaporizhzhia aluminum plant, small and many other companies, as we are preparing for the privatization of 2016. Concerning the lease domain, we have introduced a suggestion to cancel indexation of certain lease fees. You can see our budget estimates 564 million for this year. And you can see the numbers, how we outperformed this. And we had 440 lease agreements signed throughout this 100-day period. This is brief, concise presentation of our legislative initiatives. Some of these have been already adopted, like the one on moratorium to forceful privatization of properties. And some pieces of legislation are of particular importance for us, like suggestion 510 concerning advisors for our body. It also includes improving the criteria to weed out representatives of the aggressor country and improve our performance. Our further legislative initiatives concern the law on the state property fund, the law on appraisal activities. It will be about revolutionary changes that we already discussed with parliamentary factions. I hope that the law 2319 will be finally voted on in the second part of this month, and we already have this document in the queue of bills. This will open way for a new wave of privatization for VNG class enterprises, which specifically concerns the energy sector enterprises. It will bring also changes in share distribution, and we hope that the new privatization offers will start coming January. The Cabinet of Ministries of Ukraine is also involved, and we work closely with it also on the property appraisal techniques and preparation of enterprises for privatization. It goes hand in hand with our legislative initiatives for the sake of more transparent privatization, for the sake, again, to get the intended results in 2016. Now, really briefly about the privatization itself. The biggest and juiciest objects are surely of particular interest. You can see from the slide what really happens up to this day. No big results to boast in terms of bringing new budget revenues, but we will continue with our efforts to provide for quality preparation of our enterprises for privatization in the coming year.
I would like to put it shortly without these slide presentations. Those are legislative, and we're talking about methodologies and procedures together with advisors and with the help from our prompt help from our Western alliances. We're going to start privatization according to the new conditions, and we're going to have new technical advisors. We have started this process of advisor selections, and by the end of this week we are going to announce our advisors as to privatization of fuel complex, and I'm going to tell you how we are going to prepare for the privatization. So here you can see what are our planned objectives, but I'm sure we're going to achieve much better results. We're going to have the advisors at every stage of this process, the process of privatization, and you'll see who contributes to what extent. So that those are our assistants. So we have negotiated with USAID, with IFC, European Commission, and I would like to talk about IFC separately. We're nearly over with our negotiations with USAID, and we are facing serious assistance up to $7 million, and those money will be allocated for the privatization preparation period. What I'm talking about high quality analysis of the companies. We are going to prepare the to present this information. We are going to set up the data room for international data room, and we're going to have up to $500,000 per each company. and it is going, we hope, for much better quality of privatization, and we're going to have much better presentation, much better communication, and we are planning to increase the awareness of potential investors. All the advisors will be able to administer the buyers, the purchasers for each item, privatization item. So far we're having up to 10 interested parties, and we hope for their active participation in the auctions. And you know, coordination is quite a challenge. To have even 5 participants, auction participants, is very difficult. We're talking about the teams of up to 30 people who needs to be administrated, coordinated, hosted, and we need to persuade them to participate in the auction and to put the highest bids. So it is another presentation of on privatization. The information which you are looking for, those are energy generating companies and heat generating plants, and that is the most important, the basics of the presentations. Also, we are planning to include the Sumy chemistry plant in case if government is not going to set up the Titan industry, manufacturing companies. So we're now creating the pool, and we're participating in the establishment of such a pool, and we have given our proposals to the ministry, and we are going to have a Sumy chemistry plant committee meeting, and we are going to discuss the establishment of Titan pool. So if those companies are not going to be privatized soon, we are going to include them into privatization plans. Furthermore, what is our list for this year? What are our this year plans? This year we are going to do small privatization. I mentioned Sumy chemistry plant, and we're going to sell the Premier Hotel, and those are the basis for our privatization. But I would like to pay most of the attention to the next year privatization, because we're planning up to 30 milliards of proceeds for the next year privatization, and it is going to be it is going to assist our tax reform. Everyone is looking for the compensation for the decrease of the budget proceeds from the resulted from the tax reform. The state property fund is not a separate kingdom doing privatization on its own. In order to do the privatization, we need the contribution from the Cabinet of Ministers, from the ministers. We need the Cabinet of Ministers to coordinate our activities. We need to change the status of certain companies, especially those who are not really nationally strategically important, and we will do our best to keep to the transparent procedure procedures and to achieve our objectives. So, and we're having such a slide. We're going to show it in our social networks, in Facebook, and during our meetings. That is how we are going, how the ministries are transferring their assets to us for privatization. So those are pictures clearly reflecting which state agencies are transferring the items for privatization. We have a lot of task forces, we have a lot of contacts, and we are pushing the state agencies to do that. But you know, it really takes a lot of effort to persuade the agencies to speed up the transfer. So you see the blueprint, and you see how the state agencies can transfer the items for privatization. If we coordinate all that, we can do that. We can do the privatization. That's what I wanted to let you know. Please have your questions.
Holoskiva, Ladutchenko, what's the situation with the Yuzhny seaport? If I remember correctly, we've just through with this system with Ukrzaliznytsia. We recently presented it before the cabinet, and we worked for about 2 months with the Ministry for Infrastructure, and that I know that similar process is undergoing now regarding the Yuzhny seaport, and if I'm not mistaken, Deloitte is doing the key work there, and we will provide the license. We've started the work, but I'm not ready to give any details. We'll note it to inform you later. Ilya, Lukash, you've generally mentioned reorganization until late September. Could you give us the number of people, redundant personnel? 37% of the staff is going to be redundant. Now concerning assets in the Crimea, do you have an exact number of them? I'm ready to give you all the information. Can you provide us with the figures then? There are these thick documents about that, and if I'm not mistaken, we have just 29 assets that belong to the State Property Fund. But if we analyze deeper, per ministries, per institutions, we'll see a bit bigger numbers. And this concerns our ongoing work, not just in the Crimea, but also with enterprises in the Russian Federation. I'm not ready to give you the final number, though. As concerning our enterprises, it is about billions to count on. And we had information prepared for the media recently. I will provide it to you later on. Are you going to launch online bidding auctions in electronic format? All the objects in V and G categories will be sold at open auctions with licitors, with media present, to make it as transparent as possible. And this will be the same procedure. It will be the same procedure also for energy objects. As regards small privatization, we started with those so-called Dutch auctions, but unfortunately no results so far. We are ready to really put it at a dime, but with no bids coming in. Maybe let's leave it to the August time, when it was the time of vacations. Maybe it will be revived later on. But as we are going to introduce a new planning system in our fund, not just to announce some objects, some assets in printed media, I think we'll come up with some specific indicators for these assets so that people will be somehow responsible for meeting or not meeting plans. Really, there is little motivation among the fund staff because of negligible salaries, too big the scope of work. Surely it takes something, from someone to get a mini survey at least about assets offered, because there are objects that really cost, say, 200,000 hryvnias, the starting price, with 10% guarantee. It may cost someone just 20,000, of this warrant price to get this asset, but for some reason people won't flock to such auctions. Maybe it is about some flaws in our marketing efforts, but again, to come up with improved marketing, we need better budget. At the moment, we still use our privatization herald publication, which is to somehow spur the process. We are going to issue this herald twice a week, as this is our official publication that ushers start of privatization processes. That is, to speed up, we'll try to make it a bi-weekly one, and we are going to launch a website by the end of September to have an electronic interface also available, so that everyone, even physicists, would be able to participate in the so-called Dutch auctions, or entrepreneurs of various groups. Artem Ilyin, Dialo UA. Couple of questions. In continuation of the previous question, will your competition on big enterprises impose certain professional limitations or qualification criteria, like we had Ukr-Telecom privatization, when some unknown fund from another company finally bought it? Exactly the changes suggested by 2319A bill are aimed at liberalizing the approach, but on the other hand providing stricter conditions regarding access of companies. We are not going to allow companies with 20% share of the state in them, the Ukrainian state. We are not going to allow those under sanctions. If I'm not mistaken, we will also rule out participation of offshore companies. There will be some other limitations to weed out companies that clearly need not participate. Then after the pre-qualification phase, the bidding company will be allowed to get the information prepared by a variety of our advisors and counselors, and it will have access to the asset itself, to the management of this asset, to better evaluate the situation and to consider the idea whether they are really willing to buy it. If you mean whether we are going to keep consortiums out, no, we will not make this step. But the bidding selection commission, I think we will include the people from counterintelligence, from the state security service and other organizations that, in our view, will help us for useful decision to be made. It will include people from the anti-monopoly committee, etc., to see that whenever a company with more than 50% market share is willing to bid, then maybe it will be the task for anti-monopoly people to step in. Speaking of consortiums, if it will be a profile investor, then it will be the question of certain guarantees with live money coming in, of 25% at least. If in currency, then the money should go to Bank or to the State Treasury Department if in hryvnia. That is, whenever we speak about the OPZ, the Odessa ammonia plant, surely it will be a strong point to consider every criterion. Actually, all of the investors take the culture group with chemical enterprises among the assets. I mean, chemical enterprises in Poland, they will be allowed, and all the profiled companies. Surely even our elites working in the sector like Fitash Group maybe theoretically be allowed.
Our second question is to your picture. We do remember all your disputes as to Central Energy Generating Company, and we would like to know what's the current situation with that, and what's the situation with energy generating company, who controls them. So we're going to put 6 companies, to sell 6 companies. Unfortunately, we don't have information from the central generating company. They promised to give us the information after the heating season, and I believe that it is quite dangerous to sell such companies during the heating season, and we're going to do that after the heating season, and that's what we're preparing all the advisors for. Energy industry people gave us information about their companies. They gave us the information on minings. They gave us information on the other enterprises companies. They're quite slow. Everything is slow, as you can see. We have a lot of problems with that. For example, they transfer the enterprises which are not ready for privatization, with a lot of debts, without auditor reviews and inspections, things like that. The last question as to your presentation, you mentioned Azovmash company. Please let us know what's going on there, what the situation. As far as I know, that this public joint stock company are owned mostly by the government. However, we have the control block owned by the private persons or entities. Well, this company is not working. It is dead, and it is a sort of a double company. We have a shell and the company really owning the asset. So, and this company is very close to the front line, and it doesn't work except for some immediate pending commissions. And I would like to put it frankly, the chances to privatize the companies are minimal, and it is difficult to sort out the situation with Mr. Ivanushenko, who is a final beneficiary. As you know it, we have late Savchuk, and we have the Mr. Ivanushenko. And let's face it, we have lost this company. This company is present, but we have lost it. Of course, this company is able to manufacture things for the defense industry. However, you listen to Mr. Pivovarsky, who told us about carriage manufacturing and things like that. And I think that after the privatization of Ukrainian railways, we need to start the renewal of the manufacturing, of the renewal of the carriages in Ukraine, and probably that will be high time to recover our Azovmash situation and to recover the company. Svoboda Radio, Krim Realis, and I have a couple of questions as to Crimean companies. You mentioned about fighting. What fighting did you mean? State property fund with Ministry of Justice or Ukrainian agencies with Russian Federation agencies? And the question is, what is this fight about? About recovery of the corporate rights or about compensation? Thank you very much for your question. The main burden of fight is bared by the Ministry of Foreign Rights, and most of the companies are being liquidated, some 29, and I think some 9 of them or 20 of them are being liquidated. I will need to check the exact numbers. And we have some 9 companies alive, and we are now starting the court, starting the litigation procedures against the Russian Federation. Can we sell it? Yes, we can, but we won't be able to do that officially, and we will violate sort of diplomatic and international protocols, and economically we can sell it, but taking into account international situation, we shall not do that. And the last question is from Ukrainian Crisis Media Center about fulfilling the budget requirements. If we're doing the small privatization, we're starting it this year and is going to continue next year, how it could be coordinated? Well, we are lucky to have this privatization decision made, and it is the burden is eased, so we made a decision to postpone big-scale privatization, and I hope that because of that we'll have better results. All the potential investors also approved of such a decision. Next year we're going to make nearly 1 billion hryvnias as a result of the privatization. I would like to sell President Hotel, and if we are lucky to amend the law, we will sell heat generating plants. We have buyers for that, regardless of the obsoleteness of those plants. Most of them are 50s, 60s of the last century. It is still pretty effective and efficient companies. It is no use to recover those plants. It is mostly much more feasible to build a new, but it is up to the investors to decide. But it is our next step. I'm not going to offer 5% block because nobody will understand why they should buy it and what for, and no way to recover those companies. But we hope that we can sell a lot of those companies, big blocks. For example, we're going to sell Kalush heating manufacturing plant, we're going to sell Kherson heating plant, and companies like that. Thank you very much. Our briefing is over. If you have questions, please answer them unofficially, and Ukrainian Crisis Media Center will place the materials on the site and also via Facebook. Thanks.